Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. We're back after being on the air earlier today for Grid Live Pre-Race. Be sure to comment in the chat room. With me today, we have Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish, Ben Schneider, and Adam Lemeries. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Colin, Michelle, and Mark for keeping us on the air. Be sure to invest in the Grid Network so we continue our coverage all throughout 2022, including at the track later this year. And of course, you could also do Buy Me a Coffee. You want to do a one-time contribution to the Grid Network and get your name displayed on the air that week. Only two races this weekend, but still, we saw some great racing across the board. So overall, we'll start off with Cody. NASCAR, Richmond Raceway, first short track of 2022 in the regular season.
Yeah, the first short track race of the regular season, and that did not see a lot of caution flags at all up until the start of stage 3. Only one caution for Kurt Busch, who had a fuel pump failure during the first 10 laps. And at the end, we saw a long green flag run to the finish. Tire management and strategy that proved to be the winning move. A strong bounce back for Toyota with Denny Hamlin ending Toyota's 12-race winless streak. And starting with you, Ben, what are your thoughts on Denny Hamlin mounting a late race charge and all the different tire strategies we saw today?
Yeah, it ends the streak of the under 30s winning races too. I can't believe Denny Hamlin's in his early 40s already. It feels like just yesterday he was a rookie with Joe Gibbs, and now he's 41 years old and still clearly has what it takes to win these Cup races. I think it was probably a good thing we got that finish because it was shaping up to be a pretty lackluster race. I even have to admit I was switching back and forth between the race and the NBA basketball games on ABC a little bit there. I think Richmond needs to seriously consider doing something to, I don't know if it needs a full repave or just a resealing or, my Grid Encore co-host Brandon Crossland was probably only half joking on Twitter this afternoon that maybe we take one of their dates, give it to the Nashville Fairgrounds whenever it's ready. I don't know if the race being in the daytime or nighttime really makes much of a difference. The racing has been relatively lackluster over the past few years, but what you can sometimes get with long green flag runs and not a lot of action, it does at least give the opportunity for long runs and strategy to play out, and that's what I think saved the race ultimately today. I do wish we saw that more often. It's kind of gone away, that strategy in fuel mileage races and long runs, these last few years here in this new era of NASCAR. So it was refreshing to at least see that today. And also good for Toyota. Like we mentioned, it's been a long time since they've gone this far into the season. I know it's still early, relatively speaking, but we do have a few races under our belts now. And Toyota usually would have at least one win by now with Gibbs or whoever the case may be. I think 2311 still has some work to do. Not a great day for Bubba Wallace. And obviously Kurt Busch had his problem at the beginning of the race. But great to see Toyota back up there with their Gibbs cars, and for Denny Hamlin to get the win today. I've got a feeling it won't be the last time we see him in victory lane this season.
And it was the only driver to pick Denny Hamlin to win today. Me. Thank you. I think, what we saw, with these long green flag runs, surprisingly, we didn't see a lot of tire failures, like we've seen, so far this year. I think, the strategy was coming from the crew chief. If you had old tires, it worked. And, and we saw William Byron get caught up in all that lap traffic. And then, also, Denny Hamlin and also Kevin Harvick, who finished second today, his best finish all season long. Martin Truex Jr., another Joe Gibbs driver who was up there all day long battling for the win. I think if you had old tires, I think it worked. And it was pretty cool to see Denny Hamlin win in his home state. He probably had a lot of fans, and friends and family in the stand, cheering him on today. And I think it was just a matter of time before we saw Toyota get into victory lane. They were really close at Las Vegas. Joe Gibbs of having a 1-2, with Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr. until Eric Jones went out and the race win. And so overall, it was really good to see Toyota back in victory lane, and Denny Hamlin is probably celebrating right now and enjoying it, winning in his home state and his home track as well.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin and his crew chief definitely nailed the strategy for today's race, and like you said, Adam, it was just a matter of time before Joe Gibbs Race and Toyota were gonna find victory lane in 2022. And on a pre-race earlier, they mentioned Las Vegas. They could have already had a win if it wasn't for that late race caution. But they've definitely been a little bit behind Chevrolet and Ford, and it really seems like that they found something. And actually, after the race, Joe Gibbs Racing admit after they did a tire test at Darlington a few weeks ago, they found something that they used for Richmond, and maybe just maybe that was the one thing that really helped them move forward in performance. So Joe Gibbs Racing can start contending for wins on a more regular basis, and I expect them to do that and win multiple races throughout the rest of the regular season and get their cars into the playoffs. And I also agree with what Ben said about, for the most part, lackluster race during the first 2/3, and then the final third we saw the alternate strategies. It was really fascinating to follow that all throughout and get a green flag run to the finish without a caution during that. So it was really nice to see how it played out, because typically we're compelled at how the strategy is played out, and then a caution comes out and then it ruins everything. So I'm really glad we got to see this one play out, because we may not get so lucky next time around. Toyota overall looked really strong all day. Christopher Bell was up front. Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch recovered from a black flag for tape on the grill, which is a new rule this year with the next gen car. And Busch was able to recover, finish in the top 10 with all four JGR Toyotas. Another team with strong finishes but disappointing result, Hendrick Motorsports. William Byron, he was close, no cigar. Got caught by Denny Hamlin in the final laps. Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman's teammates, finished in the top 10. Chase Elliott, don't really know what happened to him. He just faded towards the end. Kevin Harvick, a good run for him. He was coming on Hamlin, and he finished in second place. And starting with you this time, Adam, despite Hendrick having 3 wins already, are they still the favorites each week, or is it anyone's game? What we've called the big 3 teams, sometimes 4, have all won.
I think Hendrick Motorsports is still the team to beat. Even though the highest finish for Hendrick Motorsports today was Alex Bowman. Kyle Larson was also in the top 5. His first top 5 in a while. But I think right now Hendrick Motorsports is still a team to beat. All 4 drivers over there are capable of winning. Surprising that we haven't seen Chase Elliott win, but next time the next time the NASCAR Cup Series runs is Saturday night under the lights at Martinsville Speedway, and yeah, it's a short track. Chase Elliott is really good there, so we could see Chase Elliott in victory lane and claim that grandfather clock next Saturday night under the lights in Martinsville.
I think Hendrick still are probably the favorites. We saw William Byron. If the race was 5 laps shorter, we'd be talking about him winning today. So I think, all 4 of Hendrick's cars, I think, are still very strong. You see Larson up there in the top 5 as well. Like you mentioned, Adam, Alex Bowman had another strong run today, getting another top 10. So I think, obviously it's great to see Toyota back, and we've seen some strong runs from some other teams. But you look at Hendrick's lineup, I think William Byron having a strong run today, nearly getting a win. Alex Bowman winning several races now over these last couple of years. And, our last 2 defending Cup Series champions are Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. So I think any of those 4 right now, with the way this playoff format is, are threats for the championship, let alone winning races week in and week out. So I think they still have to be the favorites.
Yeah, still the favorites. And I mentioned Kevin Harvick finished in second place. I want to focus on Harvick a little bit. When was the last time late in the race we've seen Kevin Harvick contending for a win like that? I admit it's been a while. We don't see Kevin Harvick contending for the win as much as we used to. He hasn't won since fall 2020, and he went winless last year. Yeah, so that four team is definitely taken a step back in the last year and a half, and this certainly has to be a great confidence booster for Stewart Haas racers, Kevin Harden and Rodney Childers. But yeah, and it gives them the confidence that they still got it, that they haven't lost a step. I honestly thought, that Harvick might have lost a step in the team as well, but it seems like Stewart Haas Racing is slowly starting to get back into contention week in, week out. We saw Chase Briscoe get the get the victory at Phoenix several weeks ago, and I think that team is really clicking right now. It'll be interesting to see if Kevin Harvick will be able to do one spot better and get to victory lane for the first time since 2020 when he won the Bristol night race. And one team that had neither car finish in the top 15 was Trackhouse Racing. Last year, Chastain finished 15th in this race, and this year, both Trackhouse Racing Chevys ran well, especially Chastain, who had tempers flare with Ryan Blaney on the track a couple of times today, but tire strategy just didn't go their way. With Martinsville and Bristol Dirt coming up, this is a mini short track swing. After another strong showing from Chastain and Trackhouse, but fading in the final stage, can they rebound and finish in the top 10 next Saturday night at Martinsville?
Chastain has had a couple of strong runs at Martinsville in Xfinity and truck, so I expect him to be relatively strong next Saturday night when we get to Martinsville. In terms of Bristol Dirt, I think that's probably going to be a track where Trackhouse struggle. They're still a very young team, and I think that's probably just going to be more of a race of attrition where it's going to be harder for them to run up front, especially with a new next gen car. I think we'll probably get into that question a little bit later on here in the script, but I think, it's obviously been a great start to the season for Trackhouse with Chastain being on 4 straight top 3 finishes. You knew that streak was probably going to come to an end at some point, but it's still been a great start to the season for them. And I think, there's certainly the potential for a strong run next weekend at Martinsville and maybe even at Bristol Dirt. They might be able to surprise us there. Who knows? But, it was a little disappointing to see they couldn't keep that up today, but, that's racing.
I completely agree with you, Ben. I think, even though Ross Chastain finished outside the top 15, when we get to Martinsville, I think he will be a contender. He's done really good in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series, like you mentioned. So, it was kind of disappointing, to see Trackhouse Racing, finish outside the top 15. But in the beginning, Ross Chastain had a real solid start to the race, but unfortunately faded. And Daniel Suarez wasn't really up there either. But next Saturday night, NASCAR goes to Martinsville, and it's a race that everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to do good at. It's going to be cool to see under the lights. So I think Trackhouse Racing can rebound and have a solid run at Martinsville.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Adam. There's no reason why we can expect Trackhouse to bounce back at Martinsville under the lights. And I know, Ben, you were talking about where they might struggle at Bristol Dirt. Actually, when you think back to last year's race at Bristol Dirt, Daniel Suarez ran extremely well and got a top 5 finish. He even led the race at one point. I believe, if my memory is correct. So I
That's
think they
true.
could.
I
Yeah.
was thinking about Chastain, actually. I forgot about Suarez during that. He did have a good run last year, so we'll see.
Yeah. I remember Daniel Suarez surprised a lot of people because he didn't really have much dirt racing experience, and then to come out there and run so well on Bristol Dirt caught a lot of people off guard. Maybe he can try to emulate that performance last year in a couple of weeks' time, and maybe join Ross Chastain and get his first career win in the Cup Series with Trackhouse. But that team, although Ross Chastain did not get the finish he wanted today, he ran really strong during the first 2/3 of the race, running inside the top 5, the top 10, then got in a little argy bargy with Ryan Blaney, where Blaney shoved him up the hill, Ross got him back, and then Blaney gave him another shove. Blaney really mad on the radio. So basically, just short track racing, tempers boiling over, stuff you see at tracks like Richmond Raceway. And as we mentioned, the Toyota Owners 400 went green for most of the race, and we don't see a lot of tire management, alternative strategies, or fuel mileage races anymore in NASCAR. A question for everyone: with the new car, do you think we'll see more racing like this moving forward?
I believe so. I think what we're seeing with the new car, this is a car where the drivers they really have to work at controlling the car week in and week out, fighting and taking care of it too. Yes, it could withstand a hit, contact better, but tire management was really big today. One of the big things I sort of wish if we didn't have those stage cautions and just let the race play as it naturally would, how we would get even more different strategies when it comes to tire management. Some drivers not pit in during select cautions. So overall, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of potential with this car. Every race has been pretty great, and it's just been interesting. With this race, we had more green flag pit stops than the other 6 races combined. I think that really speaks to where with this short track, I know early on it didn't seem like a whole lot of action. Of course, a lot of folks remember Richmond in the nighttime where it was a lot more grip, people just driving towards that bottom line, hugging the curve and pushing people out of the way. Here, similar to what we had in Atlanta, there's more room, more lanes to push around. So overall, I feel it was a good race, and I think it really demonstrates what this car can do with this package.
Oh yeah, Scott, I completely agree with you, Joe. It was nice to see a tire strategy race. Today we haven't seen that in a long, long time. And now that we're through the first 6 races of the season, the first on a short track, other than the Clash of the Coliseum, it was really nice to see, a different strategy today. It was, you know, and I agree with what Ben said about being a lackluster race. It was kind of, you know, um, um, you know, the first 2/3 of the race were, for, yeah, um, it was pretty boring. But once we got into the last third, it was really, really competitive. So I think we'll see a lot more strategy come into play. You know, as we go forward, especially at the short tracks. Like we mentioned, next 2 events are short tracks: Martinsville, Bristol Dirt on Easter weekend. So it was nice to see a different strategy than what we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, well, we do have a comment in the chat room from BJ Morgan here. It was refreshing to see a race play out and strategies happen. It felt like an old school race, long green flag runs and green flag pit stops. I think this favors the veterans in the long run. Well, I completely agree with the concluding statement there in that message. I think absolutely if we see more racing like this with more green flag runs, you think of the young drivers that have been coming up and to their credit, winning races to start the season. Like I mentioned, it was a streak of winners under 30, and then Hamlin broke that streak today. But I think when you come up through the ranks in this stage racing era where you don't get as many green flag pit stops or experience doing that kind of thing, I think absolutely it's going to favor the veterans going forward if we see that kind of racing. I don't expect to see this kind of racing at the short tracks like Bristol and Martinsville. I think this is kind of an anomaly of a short track in NASCAR these days with the kind of racing that we get. It is a short track, obviously, because it's under a mile in length, so that's how it's classified. But the racing isn't as able to be compared accurately to what we see at Bristol and Martinsville. So I'm expecting something a little bit different. Obviously, when we get to Bristol Dirt in a couple of weeks, that's going to be, I think, extremely different, especially with this new car. Who knows what we're going to get there? But I'm expecting, like I said, a little bit more attrition when we go out to Martinsville next weekend.
Yeah, definitely expect to see a little bit more attrition. I'm thinking maybe we get later on into the season, just well, actually next month when we get to the Coca-Cola 600 miles of racing, it's gonna be interesting to see how the next gen cars hold up for an extra 100 miles at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. But overall, as I said earlier today on Grid Live pre-race, that there were a lot of questions about this next gen car before it came on the track. A lot of people were doubtful. People didn't know if it was going to be safe or not. We've seen quite a few hard hits so far, so I think the safety test is definitely passed up to this point. And wondering if it was going to put on great racing, I think you can check that box as well. And if it's harder to drive and the drivers like it, check and another check. So I think NASCAR's done a really great job with this car, and they deserve a lot of credit for it. And yeah, we don't see a lot of tire management, different strategies, or field mileage races anymore. But I do think that we could certainly see that more often than not. And also, post race tech is complete, and Denny Hamlin is officially the winner of the Toyota Owners 400. And the viewer who commented, BJ Morgan, I actually recognize the name because he followed me on Twitter. So welcome, BJ. I don't know if you've seen our programs before here at Grid Network, but really appreciate you for checking us out. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to our channel, please be sure to do that.
We encourage everyone to be sure to like, subscribe, and of course follow us on Twitter as well at Grid Rankin or Grid_History, where we post historical races each and every day from Matt's Video Vault. MotoGP, another unpredictable MotoGP race winner and a first-time winner in MotoGP. Alexis Espargaro wins his first career MotoGP race after 200 starts. That is the longest any rider has gone before winning their first MotoGP race. He was followed by Jorge Martin, who was leading a good portion of the race until the very end, where Alexis got around the Aprilia. They've been in MotoGP since 2015. This is their first win, and they look strong. And Alexis is now the points leader in MotoGP. Adam, do you believe Aprilia can now attend 4 wins throughout 2022?
Oh, absolutely. And credit to Julia and Josh who got Alexis Espargaro right for pick a winner alongside myself. You know, it was really cool to see another different winner in MotoGP today. It was an underdog story. After Aprilia's been in MotoGP since 2015, Alexis Espargaro, competing in 199 MotoGP races, and now in his 200th, he wins. Pretty incredible, and now that Alexis Espargaro is in the points lead, after Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, we head to Europe. Could Aprilia win in Europe? Sure. Could Alexis Espargaro win a few more races this year? Sure. I think, what we've seen from MotoGP so far this year has been incredible. 3 different winners and 9 different riders on the podium. It's really, really cool to see, different riders on the podium each and every week. And kind of surprising we haven't seen people like Marc Marquez get a win. Fabio Quartararo hasn't won. Brad Binder hasn't won. Johan Mir hasn't won. But it's early. Once we get into Europe, I think we'll know who the best riders are in MotoGP. I think after the first half of the season, we'll know who the contenders are for the World Championship.
I do agree. I feel after we leave Circuits of America, we'll start to see some of the teams, particularly Ducati, Jack Miller, Pecco Bagnaia, been a really rough start. Of course, Jack Miller had that 3-place grid penalty for today's race. And then Pecco Bagnaia just not having the year like everybody thought he would after such a strong effort to try to get that championship away from Fabio Quartararo. But of course, came up just a little bit short when he crashed out while racing against Marc Marquez. So overall, very interesting to see, as you have mentioned, 3 different riders go on get wins. And of course, Bastianini, Alexis, they both got their first wins in MotoGP. That's really huge, very exciting. And of course, once we get to Circuits of America, it's going to be really exciting to see what's going to play out next. And of course, Joshua Birch, my schedule will be here, but of course, it is pretty much very close, late to Monday morning. So here is Joshua Birch's take on the MotoGP race.
Hello everyone, sorry I can't be on the show tonight as well. Internet's turned off at 1 a.m. So let's go through what happened in the Grand Prix of Argentina. And Joe, thank you very much for sending me over some things to answer as well. We're around about an hour after the checkered flag fell here, and luckily the timings are still here in the commentary box, which is fantastic as well. That is currently the championship standings, which is perfect for what we need to go for. So you've asked me as well a question on my thoughts on Alexis' win and how comparative it is in the situation for this season. Well, what a race to start with as well. Jorge Martin got a better start than Alexis Espargaro, and for about 15 laps, Aleix just sat behind behind Martin as well, just to try and get the right slipstream manoeuvre down to turn 4. The last 5 laps, he was practicing the move again and again and again. And then finally, bang, he went for it, he got the move and took the lead. Remarkably, that is the best I have ever seen Aleix Espargaro ride a motorcycle. 200th Grand Prix start, 283rd in total across every class. He has never won a race in any category in this MotoGP era. And finally, he's done it. His first ever win. And it's coming his 200th Grand Prix start in the Premier class. It's just an absolute chef's kiss. Second of all, on the monitor, I will go for the fact that this win for Aprilia is a major up in their standings. They've spent so many years trying to get to the top, and suddenly, this weekend, everything has clicked. Fantastic. Second of all as well, you've asked me 3 races, 3 different winners, and 9 different riders on the podium as well. That is insane. The opening 3 races has been won by 3 different winners, but 3 different manufacturers. Bastianini on a Grenesci bike as well. The next is Oliveira, won on a KTM. Now here today, Alexis Espargaro's won on Aprilia. Once again, it's what we were talking about in the pre-show. There is no clear rider eking away at the front here. There is no clear gap. It's fantastic to see. And with it, as you say, your next point as well is the championship. The top 5 separated by 10 points. That's Alexis Espargaro, Brad Binder, Enea Bastianini, Alex Rins, and Fabio Quartararo. They're the top 5 in the standings, as you can see on the monitor. That is insane to think that we've got that big of a gap, or that small of a gap, I should say, in such short amount of time. 9 different riders on the podium. That's a different podium across all 3 races. You just can't tell who this year is going to suit best. It's the first year with new engines, so that's hampered Ducati for the reasons we explained throughout the year, as the fact that they've got a half 21 engine and a half 22 engine, and it's struggling on power. I've got no idea what's happening with Yamaha. They were down in Qatar, they were up in Indonesia, and then they've been down again here today. We saw Dovizioso have a problem, and Vinales. It has been madness. Quartararo is lucky to only be 10 points behind the leaders at the top. He's had a terrible start to this year, and it's showed. But he's the best one of the main factory lot, I think, who's done a great job in the first 3 races. It's a weird mix. My pick for a world champion, you just can't tell yet. It's unbelievable. Next weekend, it's the last flyaway race before we head to Europe at Portimao. It's the America's Grand Prix. Marc Marquez is coming back. He is the king of the road of COTA, the king of COTA. My pick is for him to win, and that'll be a 4th different winner and a 4th different manufacturer as well. I can't wait as well. Hopefully to have a great show, guys. See you next week.
Now, Adam, as Joshua had mentioned, he anticipates a 4th different winner with Marc Marquez in the 4th different manufacturer with Honda. I know we've made the joke about the Formula E Wheel of Destiny because of how unpredictable it is with who's going to win, who's going to be on the podium. But as he mentioned, 3 different winners. More impressively, 9 different riders on the podium. Nobody has gone to the podium twice this year. We talked about it in the pre-race show. This is given 2020 vibe where we had, yes, Quattraro did win the opening couple rounds, but then the championship was wide open where we saw Brad Binder, a bunch of riders get their first wins, and it came down to Mir, the consistency, and one win getting the championship. Do you believe the Grand Prix of America at COTA, Circuits of America next week, will see another different winner like Josh predicts?
Absolutely, I do. And Josh Menz and Mark Marquez is coming back, and he's the king of Coda. If he comes back and he's 100%, he will be a factor to win. But take a look. Fabio Quartararo has not won this year. Jack Miller has not won this year. Brad Binder has not won this year. There's a lot of good talent in MotoGP this year. But I do think we will see a fourth different winner when MotoGP goes to Austin, Texas next weekend. And if Mark Marquez is 100% healthy, he will be a contender. But you never can count out Fabio Quartararo. He's the defending MotoGP world champion. Even though he hasn't won yet, even though he hasn't won yet, he will sometime in 2022. Count on it.
I would have to agree with you. You have to count on Quattraro. I will be shocked beyond belief if Quattraro and Yamaha does not win the race this year. That just seems unthinkable, and I gotta agree with you. They're gonna win. Mark Marquez, assuming he's gonna be 100%, and he has some strong tracks coming up too. Once we get to Europe, including Germany, where he's undefeated, there's still plenty of time for MotoGP, and it'll be really interesting next weekend because along with MotoGP, we have Formula E. Which one of these series will see a rider or racer get on the podium for a second time in 2022? It's going to be very interesting to follow all the racers next weekend.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be really interesting to follow. And some other interesting things we've been following this week in our driver spotlight, starting with Dorian Penn, who delivered a weekend sweep with 2 poles and 2 race victories in Ferrari Challenge competition. So big congratulations to her on a great effort, great weekend all around. The Iron Dames had a fast Ferrari in GT World Challenge 0 at Imola, but contact forced them to retire from the race. Meanwhile, NHRA 4 White Nationals in Las Vegas just wrapping up. 3 female racers made it to the final round. Erica Enders and Brittany Forrest taking the win in their respective class. Full report on Thursday's show, Women in Motorsports. Jesse Owuji didn't compete at Richmond. Instead, Kyle Weatherman drove his car. Owuji's team is currently low on owner points and need good results to safely make it into the field at future races to avoid situations like the D&Q last weekend at COTA. Bubba Wallace in his first race without his suspended crew chief finished 26th. 4 races without Booty Barker suspended for the loose tire at COTA. Dave Rogers is going to be on the pit box until Booty's able to return. Also, big shout out to Roger Carruth on his first career Xfinity start. Finished 24th for Alpha Prime. Ran all the laps and got a good learning experience. His next Xfinity race is Dover at the end of this month. Ben and Brandon will discuss more about the Xfinity Series tomorrow night on Grid Live Encore. And we had no Racing Pride ambassadors running this weekend. Link to racers, the girls behind the helmet, the African American Racer Association, and Racing Pride in the video description below.
And of course, it's the first Sunday of April, so that means the grid ranking for 2022 is underway. And the grid ranking for week one, we've had 3 racers lead this week before. And that doesn't change because once again, Scott McLaughlin for the 3rd time leads the first week of the grid ranking. He becomes the first driver to make the grid ranking in 2 different series. 2017 through 2020, McLaughlin raced Australian supercars and has the record for the most weeks led in a single season. 2021, he didn't make the grid ranking during the IndyCar season, rookie year for him. Now he leads and becomes the 3rd NTT IndyCar Series driver to lead the grid ranking. And for a lot of American fans, they were just introduced to Scott McLaughlin when he came to the IndyCars. Supercar Series, unless you're a big fan of them, doesn't have the mainstream attention like NASCAR, IndyCar, or Formula One. So starting with you, Adam, since you're the supercar expert, is Scott McLaughlin proving he's not just a supercar racer, but an international racer that is capable of racing and win it in different disciplines.
Oh, absolutely, Joe. You know, what we've seen from Scott McLaughlin here in the United States, in his second year of competing in IndyCar with Roger Penske has been incredible. You know, he win, you know, he win, he wins at St. Petersburg, and then he finishes second to Joseph Newgarden at Texas. It's and there's in a lot of years now. There's an article on speedcafe.com that you should go look at. That was written by a gentleman named Simon Chapman, and he asks, "Could we see another supercars driver like Scott McLaughlin make it over to compete in another form of motorsports?" Well, the first driver is Shane Van Gisbergen. Actually, Shane Van Gisbergen competed in round one of the Australian Rally Championship this weekend. He finished second and won a couple of stages. So, additionally, Shane competes in the GT World Challenge Australia and is scheduled to race in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Another racer is Cam Waters. And additionally, there's another article on speedcafe.com that says Cam Waters one day wants to come over here and compete in the United States. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Cam Waters follows Marcus Ambrose and now Scott McLaughlin, to race over here in the United States. The last driver in the article that was written by Simon Chapman was Chaz Mostert. And we all know he drives for Walkinshaw and Andretti United. Well, he has links to Andretti Autosport and Andretti Autosport and United Motorsport. And we all know Andretti Autosport is really successful in IndyCar, Formula E, IMSA, and could have a Formula One team on the grid in 2024. So could we see Chaz Mostert make the move from supercars to another form of motorsports? It could happen. I mean, what Scott McLaughlin is doing right now is pretty incredible, And if you think about it, he drives for Team Penske. You think about all the racers that have competed for him in the IndyCar series, throughout history. Rick Mears was successful. Alan Sir Jr. was successful. Alan Sir Sr. was successful. Emerson Fittipaldi was successful. So could we see Scott McLaughlin be the next major driver, to have success at Team Penske following those four drivers I mentioned? Sure, it could happen. And I think it will.
And I just wanted to add an additional point on Chaz Mostert. He also has ties to BMW as well. So I think if Chaz Mostert wanted to try something different, I could see him doing a factory program with BMW, whether it's with the new BMW M4 GT3 or the new BMW LMDH prototype coming up that's going to be racing in the hypercar class and the IMSA GTP class starting in 2023. And getting back to the question, Joe asked, is Scott McLaughlin proven? I'm actually going to throw out the word proven and change it to past tense. Prove. Scott McLaughlin has proved that he is an international racer who is capable of racing and winning and competing for championships in multiple disciplines. And this is a massive departure from what is used to in the heavy Australian supercar, which is a lot heavier. Driving style is obviously different, and it's in a fully closed cockpit car. Scott McLaughlin, making the switch from a heavier car to a relatively much lighter Indy car in the open wheel style of racing, it is huge. I think a lot of people would expect him to probably transition if he had decided to go down the NASCAR path, which was the original plan before it switched to IndyCar. We see Marcus Ambrose transition from supercars to NASCAR competition, and during his time in NASCAR, Ambrose was the king of Watkins Glen. If we did pick a winner back in his heyday, Marcus Ambrose probably would have been everybody's pick a winner whenever NASCAR Cup Series went to Watkins Glen International. But I gotta tip my hat to Scott McLaughlin because I think what he's doing is much harder than what Marcus Ambrose experienced coming from supercars to NASCAR, because IndyCar is an entirely different animal, and he had very little open wheel experience before even doing this. And Scott McLaughlin, he took a major risk coming from the United States. He could have stayed in supercars, won many races, many Bathurst 1000, many more championships down under, and he could have become the greatest Australian supercars driver of all time. He was really headed down the path of being one of the all time greats down under, but he decided that he wanted to branch out and come to America and have a career over here. If Scott McLaughlin had came over here and completely failed, then he would have to pack up his things and try to go back to Australia. Maybe he gets a good ride down there. Maybe he doesn't and try to work his way back. So a lot of racers aren't really willing to take risks like Scott McLaughlin took. I know he got off to a slow start with Team Penske. Was very frustrated with some of his runs in his rookie season, but Roger Penske, Tim Cindric didn't bring him to America for no reason. They were very patient with him, let him learn, get the experience that he needs in his cars, and now we're seeing a lot more confident driver in McLaughlin, and I think he's going to win at least two more races this season, and potentially maybe he'll be a contender for the championship. But I do see him being an IndyCar champion one day.
McLaughlin, I think, as you said, has proven he is an international racer, and along with just getting the win, IndyCar is very competitive. We usually see quite a lot of winners. Yes, it comes down to Penske, Andretti, Chip Ganassi, but still, those are some big names you're racing against. Indianapolis 500 winners, former F1 drivers like Rossi, Roman Grosjean. He got his win already. Grosjean's still searching for his first win as well. And of course, the big names like Scott Dixon, who is always a threat to win. So what Scott McLaughlin has done is really impressive. And realistically, he could be 2 wins in a row, 2 for 2. He was just one corner away, and his teammate happened to caught up to him. Now, second place in the grid ranking is a former foe of Scott McLaughlin, Shane Van Gisbergen. He dominated the 2021 grid ranking season, or just lost it with like 7 laps ago with a flat tire, lost the grid ranking world champion. He is right now 1.52 behind McLaughlin. Charles Leclerc is third place, and Sebastian Loeb is fourth place, which is a bit of a surprise. Loeb is not running the full World Rally Championship season. However, WRC has done 2 rounds. Loeb and OJ have done 1 round each. Very likely, as the season progresses, they will fall out of the grid ranking. Kobe, starting with you, looking at the top 10, what's the biggest surprise to you?
Well, Joe, to be honest, I actually have two surprises to me. Starting at Fort Sebastian Loeb, who's only run one event so far, the one that he won over Sebastian Ogier, and neither Sebastian is going to be running the full season. I'm just surprised because we don't have other World Rally Championship racers up there in the top 10 besides Kali Rovanpera, and it just shows you that over the past decade or so, both Sebastians have been the face of that series. Whenever you think World Rally Championship, you think of Sebastian Ogier, Sebastian Loeb, and after that, I wonder who comes next. There aren't really many names, in my opinion, that truly stand out there other than the Sebastians, because the Sebastians have really dominated this sport for quite a long time, and I think we're starting to see a changing of the guard in World Rally Championship in terms of who are going to be the contenders, who are going to be the best in the series. I know Rovan Parra, he's up there. You think of Elfin Evans, someone as well, Octonic as the ones who can step up, and it's going to be interesting to see which World Rally Championship racers can step up and and be in the same type of spotlight we've seen with Sebastian Ogier and Sebastian Loeb. And my other big surprise is, obviously Ross Chastain. I don't think anybody would have predicted Ross Chastain being up there in the top 10 of the grid ranking, let alone being one of the strongest NASCAR drivers we've seen so far this season. As I said on the pre-race show earlier today, this is the Ross Chastain that everybody thought we were going to see when he first got this big break at Chip Ganassi Racing at the Cup level. I understand it was quite a struggle for him last year. He had a few good runs towards the end of Chip Ganassi's tenure in the NASCAR Cup Series. and understand that the season of college racing, he did everything in that season but win a race. And a lot of people were wondering, is this the same guy we saw overachieve at JD Motorsports in that number 4 Chevrolet in the Xfinity Series? Now we're finding out, yes, he was that guy. It took Ross Chastain a minute to put it all together. And I think he's going to win multiple races throughout his Cup Series career. Will he win a championship? I don't know about that yet, but it really seems like life is good right now if you're Ross Chastain and smashing watermelons.
Yeah, it took my answer there with your second part there, Kobe. Great to see Ross Chastain picking up where he left off in Xfinity and trucks. It was a little bit of a disappointing first season for him last year. I want to say rookie season, but it really wasn't with how many races he was running with Premium Motorsports, Spire Motorsports. But his first season in a top team's equipment in the Cup Series, kind of a disappointment last season, but he has turned it up to 11 this year. Like I mentioned last week, getting that win at COTA was spectacular. And, to be the NASCAR representative up in the top 10 of the grid ranking so far, of course, it is still early, but I don't think anybody expected Ross to be the representative there. We probably expected it to be somebody like Kyle Larson after the season he had last year, or one of the older veterans like Denny Hamlin or somebody like that. But to see Chastain up there is a little bit of a surprise, but I'm all here for it.
Yeah, I have to say Chastain has definitely been one of the surprises there. And Falsey Bear 15 says good points made by Kobe there. I completely agree. Definitely when it comes to the feedback in the chat room, we encourage everyone share your comments, questions with us on the air. Happy to share them on the air right here. Now taking a look at the rest of the grid ranking. Formula E points leader Eduardo Montoro 11th. That's a big surprise because he is ahead essentially everyone in MotoGP. And besides Chastain, NASCAR. Now, MotoGP, 3 different winners, 9 different riders have been on the podium. Nobody has been on the podium more than once. Amazing start to MotoGP. NASCAR, we've seen the parity level there. Consistency across the teams have dropped. Chastain with his run of top 5 finishes that got him well ahead. We only have 2 NASCAR drivers in the top 20. Kyle Larson in 19th place. He was in the top 5 just about all year long last year. Formula E, they did away with their qualifying, which saw a lot of starting lineups where surprises up front, the favorites towards the back. Starting with you, Ben, do you believe we'll see MotoGP, NASCAR, and Formula E continue to be the most consistent, or do you think that might change, especially since Formula E has a lot less of this random qualifying procedure?
I know we joke about Formula E being the Wheel of Destiny series here, but, NASCAR has twice as many cars per race almost, and, more than twice as many races. So I think there's a lot more opportunity for some parity there. And we've seen it this year. You've got to get 7 winners in 7 races before you can get 16 and 26, before the playoffs. I don't think we're going to get there. I know we were going through this conversation last year. We saw a lot of different winners at the start of the season, but then we had drivers like Kyle Larson really hit their stride, go on a little bit of a run over the summertime, and then position themselves as the championship favorites heading into the playoffs. So I don't think we're going to get quite to that point where we talk about, winners in the regular season not being able to have a spot in the playoffs. I don't think we're going to get to that many winners just yet, but there is a lot of parity in NASCAR right now. So I think when it comes to the grid ranking, that might put them in a disadvantage with how inconsistent the series might be. Especially with this new next-gen car. We do have a few races under our belt now, but everybody's still figuring that out. We go to a complete wild card race in a couple of weekends at the Bristol Dirt Track. So, I think NASCAR is in for a lot of parity as we continue the season.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Ben. You take a look at the grid ranking standings. Pretty weird to see only one NASCAR driver, in the top 10 with Ross Chastain, but he's been very successful this year. With this new next gen car, we've had a lot of different winners so far this year, and could we see a different winner when we go to Martinsville Saturday night? It could happen. MotoGP, 3 different winners and 9 different riders on the podium. That's unbelievable. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Nobody. And Formula E, like Joe mentioned, a new qualifying format. So it's going to be interesting to see, how Formula E does, for the rest of 2022. You know, uh, it's going to be interesting to see how the grid ranking develops over the rest of 2022. Hopefully we'll get some more diversity, as the season goes along.
And of course, as the season goes along, and later on in May, once the W Series gets going, they'll be part of the grid ranking as well. So it's going to be really a large grid ranking field, 40 drivers this year. But next weekend, it is a super weekend of racing for the grid ranking. 6 out of the 8 series are racing. 10 races that are going to be scored in the grid ranking. And of course, IMSA, they'll be in Long Beach as well. So 11 races for Pick a Winner in case you're following. So if you haven't played Pick a Winner yet, if you could sweep all weekend, next weekend, you could potentially be the leader. MotoGP at Circus America. Supercars, 4 races at Melbourne. Formula E, Rome, doubleheader. IndyCar, Long Beach. NASCAR, Martinsville. And Formula One at Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix. Be sure to subscribe. Don't want to miss any of our coverage. And of course, links below to Ben and Joshua's channel as well. I can only imagine we're all going to be really busy this next weekend.
Absolutely, Joe. And for those of you, and like Joe said, be sure to subscribe to Ben's YouTube channel. Recently, he did an interview with me, and you can learn all about me, how I got started at Grid Network, how I got interested in motorsports, among other things. It was a really cool interview with Ben, so be sure to watch the interview and subscribe to Ben's YouTube channel. With that being said, it's now time for our Grid 1 Shining Moment from this motorsports weekend. Only 2 races, MotoGP in Argentina and NASCAR at the short track in Richmond, Virginia. So I'll start with you, Joe. What's your Grid 1 Shining Moment from this weekend?
I think it's a pretty easy one for me. It has to be MotoGP. Alexis Espargaro getting his first win. Aprilia getting their first win. I doubted them in the pre-race show. I thought Jorge Martin, that Ducati, was going to just out-muscle them. He ran a smart race today. Just follow Martin for most of the race. And then when it came to it, he made the pass. He took care of his stuff, got around, and your 200th start to get a win. This is something we don't see too often, especially when you talk about MotoGP, Formula One, even IndyCar as well, even the Cup Series. You don't sometimes have that much patience from teams to give you so many opportunities to try your 200th start and to finally get a win in the premier level. That is huge. A big congratulations. That is my one shining moment.
Well, I'll talk a little bit more about this on tomorrow's Encore show, but I want to give a call to Ryan Newman. It was great to see him back out in a NASCAR sanctioned race this weekend in the Modified Tour. And, like I said, it's a bit of a lighter week for our slot of races. We only had the Xfinity Series, so we'll talk a little bit about the Modifieds this weekend. But it's great to see Newman out there. Of course, he kind of was the odd man out of a new Roush Fenway Keselowski racing team, so he's not racing Cup full-time anymore, but still great to see him have an okay run, and hopefully I would like to see Newman. I know he's done several modified races throughout his career now, but he's not full time. It would be nice to see him continue to do that. A 13th place finish, might not seem super great on paper, but for his first race back in the car, I'd say he did fairly well. Having not been in a NASCAR sanctioned race all year, so it would be great to see him continue to do that. But great to see him back out on track this weekend. That's my one shining moment. Right here and right now.
And my Grid 1 shining moment goes to a young 18-year-old driver who got a top 10 finish in yesterday's NASCAR Xfinity Series race, Parker Retzlaff. That was quite an impressive run by that young 18-year-old kid driving for RSS Racing. Ryan Siegs operation, and Ryan Sieg makes a lot out of his equipment and gets his cars running the best they can against some of the heavier weights of the Xfinity Series, like Junior Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, Richard Childress Racing, Colleague Racing, and Ryan Sieg is typically up there in the mix. But typically, it's just Ryan Sieg only in the mix, and then the other two cars in his operation aren't really up there. But we saw two RSS cars running extremely well at Richmond, Ryan Sieg, and then young Parker Retzlaff, who has run races on the short tracks and also the Arca Menard series as well. But he's been in mostly mid tier equipment and haven't really seen a ton of results from him in that. But for him to get in this RSS racing Ford Mustang and do what he did, qualify in the top 10 in only his second career Xfinity start, and then race inside the top 10, that was such an incredible thing to see from a young kid who was able to do all of this. And the only unfortunate thing was his pit crew really let him down on pit road. I believe he lost a ton of positions every time he came down pit road, and he was running well inside the top 10 and then dropped all the way down to like 20th, and he had to fight back for all those spots twice. And I wonder if he could have done even better if it wasn't for all that lost track position. I think Parker Retzlaff is a name we'll have to watch out for in the future for more spectacular runs. I'm sure Ben and Brand will be talking about Parker Retzlaff throughout the season if he has any more runs like this. And also, he's a racer in the NASCAR iRacing Coca-Cola online series as well. And David says that my one shining moment is also your one shining moment. You're about to say the same thing about Parker Retzlaff. His run was really well done. Thank you for sharing that, David. And to all of viewers, please be sure to leave a comment in the chat below. What was your grid one shining moment from this racing weekend?
Well, I'm going to agree with Joe, and I'm saying what Alexis Espargaro did in Argentina was pretty cool. You know, your first career win after 200 career starts, and Aprilia getting their first career win in MotoGP as well. After, was pretty cool. Starting on pole, they had to fend off Jorge Martin. And, it was just really cool to see. Like we mentioned also, now 3 different winners and 9 different people on the podium. It's mind-boggling. I don't think anybody saw this coming, but for me, what Alexis Espargaro did, winning his first career win after competing in MotoGP for a long time, 200 starts, 1 career win, and Aprilia getting their first career win was really incredible. That's my grid one shining moment from this motorsports weekend.
Yeah, and everyone really loves a good underdog story like that. To see first time winners like that, especially since they've been trying so long to get their first win in MotoGP, is not. So it was really nice to see that happen. Unfortunately, we're out of time for tonight. Just hit the 1 hour mark, and we want to remind all of viewers to please like and subscribe to GRIDnet Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And we encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon to invest in GRIDnet Network to keep us on the air long term. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below and you can buy a drink for your favorite on-air talent here at GRIDnet Network. Also want to give a big thank you to Edward Hunter from Formerly Zone, Amber, Zachary for buying us a coffee. We greatly appreciate it, and any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. You can also visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code gives you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com, it can allow you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use the tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. And our schedule for the next couple of days: Monday night, you can catch Grit Live Encore with Brandon and Ben to talk about the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Richmond and NASCAR Modifies race there as well. And then Wednesday night, Grit Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. Myself and Adam will co-host that program, bring you the latest news in motorsports. For Joe Samdiego, Ben Snyder, Adam Limerick, and Joshua Birch, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.